Police Simulator Patrol Officers. It's a game. But not only that, it is also a fully released, shipped out, ready to go game. Totally not early access or anything here, guys. This is a fully finished, refined product. So look, I hate to have to break character so early in a video, but I have to start this one off with a PSA. This game is not finished. Not even close. I first bought this game in September, the 23rd to be exact. I'd seen a few videos about it on YouTube and TikTok and I thought it looked pretty interesting. I like games that I can throw on with a podcast or some other long video on my other monitor and just chill out for a while, and this is definitely one of those games. But now here's the thing. Back then, just a couple of months ago mind you, this game was in early access. Early access is a topic I could probably make an entire video about. I probably won't though, not anytime soon at least. However, my general opinion boils down to the following. I generally like the idea of early access. Some of my most poignant gaming experiences have come from early access titles, some of which I've already made videos about. But I start to have a problem when I come back to a game 2 months after seeing it in what I would describe it to be a little above a proof of concept state, to be greeted by a blurb announcing the end of early access and an official release. This is the sort of thing that gives early access a bad name. This game has missing features, ones that I don't even think would be that hard to implement. There are useless mechanics, terrible optimization, some of the character models look like they've been ripped straight out of Second Life. And I mean, the devs made it clear that the game is going to keep getting updates and new features as time goes on, but then the question still stands of why is this now a fully released game? I had a sort of similar gripe with Escape from Tarkov when the first beta update was released for that game some time ago now.
Stick it up my ass!
And I don't want to completely shit on this dev team. From the looks of things, there aren't that many people working on this game, and I genuinely believe that it's going to continue to get updates. It's just that this move out of early access is very baffling to me. But having said all that, the little over 30 hours that I've put into Police Simulator suggests that there's still something here. There's something worth experiencing in this game, and I'm going to do my best to show you what that is in this video. Alas. Without further ado, I'm going to take you for a ride along in the misdemeanor-infested city of Brighton. Here is something you should know about the gameplay in Police Simulator. If you're looking for an action-packed, adrenaline-fueled gaming experience, the likes of which competitive first-person shooters wish they could achieve, then this is not the game for you. Police Simulator aims to portray the more monotonous side of policing. Massive car chases and deadly shootouts? Try handing out parking tickets and catching those pesky jaywalkers red-handed. Not in my district, peasant. Some of you may have just heard that and rightfully thought to yourself, why in the absolute flying fuck would I want to play a game where I walk around handing out parking tickets? To which I say, you're looking at this from the wrong angle, Baconator. For you see, the menial tasks such as stopping people on the street and kindly asking them not to throw trash on the ground right in front of the scene of an accident are just starters. Nay, the aperitif to the bonkers shit you will be witnessing minute to minute.
Fucking look down the street.
Oh my god.
I already said that Brighton is misdemeanor infested, but you don't truly understand what that means until you spend just 10 minutes walking around in this game. Because turn any corner, and you might just walk into a pentuple vehicle accident where 4 out of the 5 drivers are absolutely off of their tits on meth. I think that the best way I can convey to you what makes this game enjoyable is to simply show you what the average patrol entails. The late game in Police Simulator looks a lot different to how it looks when you've just created a new save file. So, to allow me to show off how leveling up and progression is incorporated, let us start with our very first foot patrol. Brighton is split up into 3 districts, which are divided into numerous different neighborhoods in and of themselves. The Melting Pot district is the only one available to you when you first start the game, and it's a decent one as far as they go. All the different districts look distinct enough from each other to be recognizable, probably as well as it's going to get considering the game is set in a purely urban environment. It's pretty similar to Liberty City in that respect, actually. I remember getting quite bored driving around in that game, admittedly after however many hundreds of hours I sank into it on my PS3. There's only really so much you can do in terms of level design when it comes to creating metropolitan cities like this, and doubly so if you're trying to create grid-like American streets like these 2 games did. To keep the GTA 4 comparison going, the Melting Pot district is probably most comparable with Broker and Dukes, which is also the starting location in that game, funnily enough.
Ramen! Are you sleeping, you fat fuck? Come on!
Although you won't be seeing it for a while longer, downtown is comparable to Algonquin, the Liberty City parody of Manhattan, though honestly, insert any big American city center here, it'll probably look similar to this. And finally, Brixton is the final district you can unlock, which is a bit of a different beast in itself, as it more resembles Western European streets at times, even though everything else in the game, including the laws that you'll be enforcing, are based on the United States. But more on that later. You will only have one neighborhood unlocked at the start of the game, within which you will find a single shift. Even though you haven't unlocked any of the other neighborhoods in the melting pot as of yet, there is nothing stopping you from having a little stroll around the entire district. The only purpose of unlocking neighborhoods in the early game is providing you with different shift options, such as what time of day you start or whether you're on foot patrol or whipping. This is built upon in the late game, sometimes giving you multiple objectives to complete within a given shift across multiple neighborhoods. Here's kind of the cool thing that this game does. You can select how long your shift is going to last in real time. Say you only have 25 minutes of your intense gaming session left before you have to go pick up your parents from their extracurricular activities down at the local pub. Set your shift duration to your desired time and run to your nearest precinct to log off, inevitably running straight past gravely injured citizens on the street. Welcome to the precinct. As it stands now, there's not a whole lot to do here other than booking criminals and clocking off at the end of your shift. Look, I don't want to dwell on this much more than I need to, otherwise every sentence in the rest of this video is going to end in almost like this game isn't finished yet. So I guess just keep the whole early access meme in the back of your mind as I talk about jank features and missing content. One thing that could be cool to add into the precincts would be some sort of briefings, kind of like what they added when you do your first ever patrol, just on a larger scale. I'd take anything else that adds to the immersion factor of this game, because as it stands, the game already excels in this department and many other aspects of gameplay. This first patrol is actually a pretty good litmus test for whether you're going to enjoy the rest of this game or not, because you can't actually do all that much for the time being. You have all your parking violation options unlocked from the start, as well as a few violations you can write pedestrians up about, including jaywalking and littering. And I think that's pretty smart, because the list of all the different types of violations in this game is pretty extensive, and making sure that the player can focus purely on just a few specific ones and they're still just getting used to existing works really well as not to overwhelm them with information they need to learn. Let's take just parking violations for example, since it's the first objective you'll be given anyway. There are 13 parking violations that are present in the game at the time of making this video. And they're not always that easy to spot either, because a lot of these violations have additional qualifiers that may in fact negate them. You would think that parking meters would be an easy binary thing to catch people out on. However, look it up in the game's handbook and you'll learn that drivers that display a disabled badge can park for free in Brighton. On the other hand, you may see cars parked at taxi ranks and feel inclined to leave them a ticket, only for the game to deduct conduct points from you because the car you just wrote up is actually employed by the game's in-universe version of Uber. I find having to learn things like this in games very rewarding, and I didn't even realize that about myself until I played this game. There is an undeniable satisfaction to be found in memorizing what all of these violations look like and to be able to rack up those thousands of shift points while keeping your conduct points at the maximum of 100. And because you are on a timer, you're rewarded for being able to write up as many tickets as possible within a given amount of time, meaning faster unlocks for the rest of the game. But even with just this introduction to what is ultimately just one small part of the game, there's already a lot of room for improvement. Because you see, Police Simulator likes to make your life harder than it needs to be at times, for no real good reason at all. The inherent repetitive nature of issuing masses of violations around the city makes it quite easy to zone out and forget what you were literally just in the middle of doing sometimes. What has happened to me quite often is I will find a vehicle that's committed 2 or more violations, which isn't all that uncommon in Detroitin, so I'll start writing up the first infraction, after which all my brain cells die simultaneously and I struggle to remember what I just did literally 5 seconds ago. I think there's absolutely no reason for the game not to grey out actions you have already performed on specific vehicles or citizens. For one, repeating an action usually carries no in-game consequences other than wasting your time with another 5 to 10 second animation. No conduct points are ever deducted from the player for issuing the same violation multiple times. The animations in the game are cool and all, they all add towards the immersion factor. There's nothing more fucking infuriating than accidentally asking for someone's ID again and proceeding to waste another 15 seconds of your life with, "I need to see your ID and proof of insurance, please." "Sure, officer, here you go," which all adds up to so much time over your playthrough. Second, if I was physically there as the player character, I would have the fucking basic motor functions to pick up or just even lean over the ticket I just placed on the windshield to double check what I just fucking wrote down. And that's even before mentioning the third thing, which is that the game already grays out some specific options after you've performed them, which is just completely baffling to me why these actions get special time waste prevention privileges, whereas 90% of the other actions don't. But, alas, that's about everything there is to say about the first few patrols. Not a lot, I know. But if you stuck around for the first one and enjoyed it, then it only continues to get more fun from here. Progression in this game is good at giving you enough new unlocks after every shift to keep you interested, whilst not unlocking so much as to overwhelm you as I mentioned prior. By the second foot patrol, you will most likely have unlocked the speed camera, and the game will likely give you the objective of clocking speeding vehicles. I think this will be fun for a grand total of 5 minutes for most people, and that's before even talking about the fact that the gameplay for this isn't exactly stellar. At least you got to explore the city whilst looking for parking violations. Now instead, the game wants you to just stand there in one place aiming at oncoming traffic. But before I say anything else about that, you should know one thing about these objectives that you are given at the start of each shift. You don't have to do them. Sure, they're good to do if you want to earn a lot of bonus points to progress your unlocks, but if you get bored after a few minutes of reporting people for going 2 miles per hour over the speed limit, which is crazy how you can get points for that by the way, then nothing is stopping you from going around and doing anything else you want. Granted, this aspect of the game becomes even better when you unlock the patrol car, but we'll get to that in just a moment. The speed camera, and later the driving, expose a massive flaw in Police Simulator. The way the traffic in this game works is incredibly scuffed. First of all, traffic gets backed up on junctions all of the time, meaning that even when you find a long enough stretch of road, you may not actually have as much time to catch someone speeding as you might think before they start to slow down again. AI traffic gets stuck incredibly easy over the smallest of things. They often need the space one might give an entire truck to get around certain obstacles in their way, meaning that traffic accidents especially clog the streets up like they can't all just use the one free lane that would take them straight past the accident. This is also coupled with the fact that even with traffic density set to high, which the game warns you against doing by the way, not enough traffic spawns in to keep you suitably busy when on radar duty. You could be standing at what should be one of the busiest streets in Brighton during rush hour, and you may see something like a dozen vehicles going past within the space of a few minutes at times, which just gets too boring to bother with. But it gets even worse. Any vehicle that is not directly controlled by the player character is stuck on a track. It's really hard to explain what I mean by this. I think the best comparison I can think of is something like road vehicles in Transport Fever. Vehicles don't have any sort of mass or real velocity to speak of unless they're involved in an accident. They stick to their lanes very rigidly unless they have to switch, in which case they do so very suddenly and unnaturally. The same goes with braking or accelerating. It's incredible the amount of times I was tailing a vehicle only for them to suddenly stop on a dime, usually resulting in me firmly colliding with their ass. One of the greatest examples of this system in action occurred during one of my co-op sessions. I was reversing with my sirens on, so of course this car decides to swerve into me to get out of my way, and the rigid track system resulted in this car completely pinning me against this SUV.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
It's a good thing you can reset your character. I would have been soft-locked here. Traffic doesn't really seem to account for which side you're trying to pass through, by the way. They always try to clear the middle of the lanes for you, even if you're approaching from either of the other sides, which gets pretty annoying sometimes. Compare this to how any other open-world game does this, i.e. actually giving AI vehicles proper physics, and this system will feel downright disgusting to partake in. And I know why they did this too, is because if they had an actual physics-based system like the Grand Theft Auto games, then you'd need a $15,000 workstation to be able to run this game at 20 FPS without stuttering. But then my argument is that maybe this game could have used some more time ironing it out. This traffic system isn't bad by default. Aspects of it, such as the minimum time a car takes to slow down completely, could be adjusted. But this is a fully released product on Steam. I'm sorry, I mentioned earlier that traffic gets piled up incredibly easily, and the game technically gives you the tools you need to clear traffic, such as letting you give hand signals to drivers to command them to reverse or to turn around. And when you have the patrol car, you can also put down traffic cones and barriers. But the thing with that is that you need to give vehicles enough space to maneuver around the traffic cones first, and that's usually hard to do, since it doesn't take long for some idiots to drive right up your ass as soon as you're stopped for more than 10 seconds. Because you know, stopping right behind a cop car with his flashing lights on is just such a normal thing to do. I did it just yesterday. You can gesture the vehicles to reverse or to turn around, but I find that this only works like 20% of the time if you're lucky. The vast majority of the time I try to use the hand gestures, they just do not work, and therefore the whole traffic control system is just flawed. So many interactions that end in arrests or that require a vehicle to be towed away just become soft-locked because the street becomes so bum-fucked with traffic that you cannot do anything about that. The best thing you can do is just take care of your traffic stop as quickly as possible and get the hell out of there to despawn them all. Tow trucks and police vans just cannot get through to you most of the time otherwise. So now it's time to talk about the late game. And having just talked shit about the entire traffic system for the past few minutes, you may be wondering how it could possibly be any fun.
God.
I mean, you would imagine that having a good traffic system would go a long way in making patrol car gameplay a more enjoyable experience. And sure, it would make it a little bit less frustrating at times. However, I think that all of the other systems and mechanics present in Police Simulator add up to fulfilling a very specific niche. There aren't many other games out there that I can think of other than that roleplay mod for GTA 5 that have a background check system for every vehicle and citizen in the game world, for example. And while yes, the traffic in this game has some pretty major flaws, I still can't think of many other titles that let you conduct traffic stops like this one does. I compared aspects of this game to GTA 4 earlier, even if only to talk about the similarities between Brighton and Liberty City. But it goes a little bit further than that, because I remember always wanting a version of that game where you got to play as the LCPD way back when I first played it. The vigilante side missions that you could do from the police cruisers in that game left me wanting more. A fleshed out, large-scale police simulator. And that's in essence what this game provides. There's plenty to latch onto here if you're interested in a good police simulation game, but that's exactly what makes me so critical of everything that is implemented poorly here. Because for everything that the game does right, there's some other jank shit holding it back from, well, being finished. There's plenty more questionable and broken things to come, by the way. But let us first take a look at how a late game patrol differs to everything else you have seen up till now. The biggest difference will obviously be the fact that you now have access to shifts with patrol cars, but the game still gives you foot patrols if for whatever reason you still want to do those. I don't really see why you would choose foot patrols at this point in the game, in all honesty. Nothing's stopping you from just walking around anyway, and the patrol car opens up a lot more options for getting around, but I guess it's nice to have for RP if you're into that kind of thing. Now, by the end of making this video, I've pretty much seen everything that the game has to offer in its current state, and I can definitively say that the end game of Police Simulator becomes all about min-maxing what you get involved in and what dispatch calls you take. You will quickly realize which types of incidents provide you with the most shift points in the least amount of time, that being major vehicle accidents, and which incidents are essentially a waste of time to deal with, i.e. crime scenes such as aggravated assaults and robberies. The only thing that would help to negate this would be to make crime scenes more interesting, or at the very least give you more points for completing them. As it is now, you talk to all of the witnesses, get a description of the perpetrator, then run around the area until you find them, all of which isn't very fun to do and takes up a lot of your time, for not enough reward. Maybe the game should force you to take whatever random dispatch calls you get as long as you're not in the middle of something else. The fact that you can just select what types of incidents you get involved in feels a little strange. Feels like you're farming other people's misfortune. Accidents already give you a lot of points to begin with, and that's assuming that everyone involved is squeaky clean. Because, if you take anything away from this video, let it be the written word of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Everyone is guilty of something or has something to conceal. All one has to do is look hard enough to find what it is. Wise words. And in Police Simulator, you will quickly put them into practice. Take this one accident for example. Not only did I manage to make multiple arrests of the parties involved for driving under the influence, I also caught some jaywalkers red-handed, only to reveal that these random NPCs who had nothing to do with the original accident had active warrants and fake IDs. I bet they're feeling like quite the silly Billy now. I made so many arrests in just that one accident scene that I couldn't take most of them back to jail myself even if I made multiple trips, which actually takes me nicely into the next feature of the game. There is two-player co-op. And surprise! It actually works. In fact, if you have a friend who knows what they're doing, co-op is hands down the most efficient way to play Police Simulator. Why is that, you might ask? Well, both players contribute to one pool of shift points, and these all have the same values as they would in single player, meaning that playing with an extra person simply means that you can deal with every interaction twice as fast. It's strange actually that the game has no AI companion system, even just to do basic tasks like taking crime scene photos or even just helping you booking criminals if you have two in the back. Because if you do have a willing participant, which, fuck me, did I struggle with that. Then co-op is by far the best way to play this game. Putting criminals in jail is actually a pretty good example of this, because you can only ever have a maximum of 2 criminals in the back of your patrol car, even in this fucking monster truck. That's DLC, by the way, make of that what you will. Now if you have any more criminals than that, then in single player you're forced to call in backup to take them away, which gives you much less points than if you were to take them in yourself. But if you're playing with a friend, then nothing is stopping you from taking 2 patrol cars, doubling your capacity for justice.
If you ever catch the eye of a female cop, hope you wore your bulletproof vest.
But that's kind of it for Police Simulator. For the time being, at least. I will mention a few small things before I wrap the video up, though. Either the character designers were lazy when making this game, or Brighton has the best government weight loss incentive in the world, beating even the likes of Japan and South Korea. Brighton looks like a frat town with how no single citizen looks a day over 25 and no more than 150 pounds. Then there's also the fact that you cannot hurt civilians in any physical way whatsoever. You can plow your way straight through a crowd of people and they will simply glide over your car. Civilian collisions are simply not coded into the game. If you crash into a driving car, you have to fill out an accident report, but the same doesn't go for parked vehicles, meaning that for the most part you can drive about like a madman and there are 0 repercussions. You can also drive through red lights and generally drive about recklessly, which is strange considering that the game warns you against doing so. However, if you're a particularly perceptive viewer, then you may have noticed something I teased at the start of this video. What exactly did I mean by this? Well, as any good police officer in the grand land of the United States, the game issues you with a pistol. You have absolutely no need for it in Police Simulator. Suspects will sometimes flee from the player for a number of different reasons. Sometimes it's because you stop them for something minor, but they're carrying a fake ID, so they would much rather take their chances with a brisk jog. Other times they run away from you for seemingly no reason at all, other than whatever hallucinations they're actively experiencing. However, what I would argue is currently a big flaw in Police Simulator is the following. You are never in any danger, and the game doesn't even hide that fact from you. You are clearly told that any use of your firearm will result in a game over, which is just so ridiculous to me. Sure, if you see a fleeing suspect, you can point the pistol at them to yell for compliance. But when they inevitably ignore you, not only does the taser also make you shout for compliance when it's aimed at someone, you're going to have to switch to it anyway to make them taste the fucking lightning. The way I see it, the developers have two choices here. Either the pistol gets removed entirely, because it literally serves as zero purpose as it stands anyway, and Brighton turns into some sort of disarmed state, or they add cases in which you are allowed to gat someone down. And yes, that's probably not the type of game they're trying to make here, I understand that completely. The fact that they're planning on adding a tackle feature in the next few updates kind of reinforces that idea. Did I mention that this is a full release, by the way? Okay, I'm just making sure. But even if there was just a very tiny chance that someone was willing to use one of the many abundant weapons that you find all over Brighton, I think that would add so much more depth to what is currently a very repetitive gameplay loop. I mean, 99% of interactions are just you trying to fill up a progress bar with no real interruptions. What else could possibly simulate what life as a police officer in America could potentially entail better than just that slight chance that some meth junkie decides to throw his entire life away at this traffic stop today for no reason? I think that's something that would make Police Simulator earn its simulator part of the name. Just that added sprinkling of danger. Or just remove the fucking gun, that works too. Chances are that one of two things happened after you watched this video. You either stopped 5 minutes into it and bought the game yourself because it's exactly everything you've ever wanted, or you were never going to be convinced in the first place, and both of these are valid options. If you were to judge it by the nakey-jakey scientific formula of $1 per hour of gameplay, then I think I got my money's worth. But that won't be the case for most people, I don't think, and the game doesn't exactly do itself many favors in that regard. And look, there's plenty more things I can bring up to show just how unfinished this game is, but I think I've already made that point clear enough. Hopefully I've conveyed the point that this game has some pretty cool ideas, but it's nowhere near finished. Alas, I hope that if you aren't informed about this game by the end, then at the very least, you were entertained. I've been Scav Merchant Hub, and you have just been caught in the act of a felony. You have an illegal firearm. You could just kill me right here. I'm alone after all. Hell, you could just drive away right now and I probably wouldn't even be able to catch you. Well, you're under arrest, my friend. See ya, loser.
I want you to subscribe to me
Scav Merchant Hub
on YouTube. Thank you, cringe.